What's happening, y'all? Welcome inside the Fantasy Stock Exchange. Danny and Bush coming at you with some breaking news, some huge news. I was up at my cottage this afternoon, and Julio Jones has basically officially been traded. Not officially yet, but we know he's going to be traded to the Tennessee Titans. Many reliable sources have confirmed this news, Ian Rappaport and the NFL themselves. So Julio Jones is officially going to be a Tennessee Titan. There's a lot of fantasy ripple effect. We're going to get into that, in about a 10, 15-minute span here today. Danny, how you doing?
Doing well. And you mentioned you were at your cottage. And for me personally, I was recovering from my COVID shot yesterday. So I woke up as the news was announced. And I was pretty caught off guard by it, considering I was half asleep when I read that message. So I'm fired up. Let's talk Titans. Let's talk Falcons. And let's talk the overall ripple effects, as you mentioned, in fantasy football. But before we do that, though, gonna hit the intro. Okay, so you guys should be watching this closer to Sunday night, given the fact that we took a little time to digest, took a little time to break down and really add quality to the analysis of the situation. But I'm going to start off with the Titans real quick, and let's get quickly into Ryan Tannehill. And as you guys should know, his stonks are to the moon. Okay, this is a clear upgrade over Corey Davis for a quarterback who was just the quarterback 8 in fantasy on 485 total passing attempts. We've seen through recent years, in addition, that when teams add a superstar wide receiver, it will adversely affect their passing totals. I mean, we've seen in recent years with Randy Moss, Stephon Diggs, DeAndre Hopkins. When superstar wide receivers are really acquired by these teams, they are making that commitment to more downfield passing, to more overall volume in the passing game. And for a guy who is one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league already in Ryan Tannehill, adding volume will never hurt. I mean, if we can get this guy to the 510, 520 attempt per year type range, this is a candidate to potentially enter that top 5 type territory.
Right. And you said he's one of the most efficient quarterbacks in the league. He's number 2 in production premium this past year and number 1 in 2019. And what production premium is, as I talked about on the video talking about the coaching changes, is that Ryan Tannehill has been consistently an above average quarterback at the number 1 and number 2 pace in the entire NFL. So he's been actually an elite quarterback when you compare him to a league average situation based on analytics. Of course, there's more context and tape and stuff that goes into that. But the point is, Ryan Tannehill has been phenomenal. And when you have a supporting cast like the one he has, let's just imagine right now that we're on a playground, right? And we have to play this team. We have to play Derrick Henry, AJ Brown, and Julio Jones. I'm fucking transferring schools, man. Like, I'm not playing against that team. That's insane. Like, people are going to nitpick, overanalyze this situation. They're going to go, well, this passing volume isn't very high and blah, 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 blah. But when the offense is as efficient as it is, it's proven to be, and yes, they had an offensive coordinator change, but the guy was promoted in-house, and I already talked about that on the coaching changes video. They're still going to be an above average efficiency offense, and adding a superstar receiver is definitely going to help maintain the efficiency that they've achieved over the past couple of years.
Yep, absolutely. So take your Ryan Tannehill. If you already have shares of Ryan Tannehill, you should be absolutely ecstatic with this news.
Let's just talk about how they changed in our rankings too at the end of each of these. But with Ryan Tannehill, for me, he went up to my quarterback 9 in redraft from about quarterback 13, 14 where he was. And then he went up to, I believe it was my quarterback like 9 again in dynasty. So he went up a little bit less in dynasty just because he's still a bit of an older quarterback. But in redraft especially, this guy just gained a lot of value because that QB8 performance that he had last year is much more attainable now.
For sure. And he's my QB8 in redraft. And to be honest, the more we hear about Aaron Rodgers, he could very well enter that quarterback 7 type area. So I'm fully on Ryan Tannehill, and you're talking about a low-key MVP contender for this year. I absolutely would put Ryan Tannehill into that rarefied type air. So anyways, you guys heard our rankings. We'll get into the next topic of the discussion, and that would be the reigning wide receiver 1 on this team. And the one that's probably the most hyped about this move in general, if you guys haven't seen AJ Brown on his social medias, he's been clamoring. He's been making recruiting videos for probably the last month or two. And it bothers me when people just want to say, oh, AJ Brown, now that they had competition, is he a wide receiver 1? Stop that fucking nonsense. I've been talking about this all offseason. A wide receiver addition does not affect A.J. Brown. This was a guy who was the wide receiver 6 on points per game last year on 7.6 targets per game. The team vacates 200 targets from last year, where Tannehill, as I mentioned, threw sub 500 times. I do think that number rises as well. Julio does not affect A.J. Brown's target share on this team. Julio Jones affects those tertiary fodder, like, as I'll mention in a bit, Anthony Firkser, Josh Reynolds, Des Fitzpatrick. That is who Julio is taking a pie or a slice of pie from. It is not A.J. Brown. So overall, in general, I think A.J. Brown's stock is at least the same. And in terms of efficiency, it might be a little bit better from an efficiency basis. I mean, we're still talking about a guy that is a near lock for, if he stays healthy, full 16, 1,200 receiving yards, 12 plus receiving touchdowns. It should be one of the main benefactors of an efficient offense, as we've seen in recent years. The way I view him is kind of similar to what we saw from Calvin Ridley last year, where, he was a consistent top to middle end wide receiver 1 in your teams. And in general, he didn't really change in effect. To talk about the rankings, he didn't really change in effect in my rankings. He's my wide receiver 4 overall on redraft this year. The only change I had was Stephon Diggs going one spot out simply due to the volume.
Right. And me and you differ a little bit on A.J. Brown because I actually did move him down. I moved him down from wide receiver 3 or 4 where I had him down to wide receiver 6. And the reason I did that is because I totally agree with you. People are going to overanalyze the situation, pretend that A.J. Brown is now like a back end wide receiver 1 or something like that. But I do think his ability to finish as the overall wide receiver 1 on the season is now gone because you have Stephon Diggs, who got 166 targets last year. You had DeAndre Hopkins, who had 160 plus targets last year. A.J. Brown is not getting to that territory now just because he does have another, great option to compete with for targets now, and he has Derrick Henry still running the ball. So his target ceiling, and me and you always kind of believed it was already around that 140 target range, but now that's his true ceiling. Like, there was an off chance that he could get to that 160 target range without Julio, but now he absolutely cannot get there. But again, as you mentioned, his efficiency is going to remain the same. Probably won't get any better because he's been so efficient in the past, but we can move on to talk about actually Julio Jones now because he is the one who was traded. So we should probably talk about the guy that actually was moved if you want to get into him.
Yeah, I mean, this is simple for me. It's a slight downgrade from a situational standpoint, considering the reliance he had on overall volume. We're talking about an Atlanta offense where last year averaged 39 passing attempts per game versus Tennessee's 30.1. But I still think he could be a really productive wide receiver 2 on a very efficient offense in Tennessee. He's currently my wide receiver 16 overall in my rankings. And that's about where I had him before him because, again, I took into account he wouldn't be on Atlanta. But I think in terms of a value standpoint, this is probably a net neutral landing spot in terms of where he could have been.
Right. And again, it's going to be, if everybody looks at volume all the time, right? Everyone's going to be like, well, his volume is going to go down. It's like, well, his efficiency is going to go up. So it's going to offset that. Like you mentioned, he's going to be more efficient on his targets. And here's the real thing that I'm interested to see. Does he score more touchdowns in Tennessee, right? Because touchdowns have always been a crux of Julio Jones. Even when he had 14, 15, 1,600 yards a season, he'd score 7 touchdowns or 6 touchdowns or whatever, or 3 touchdowns like in 2017. So it's a downgrade from a situational standpoint in terms of he's not going to get 160 targets, 140 targets maybe even, like he was used to seeing in Atlanta. But we might see this guy score double-digit touchdowns for the first time in I don't even know how long.
Yeah, no, I can definitely see that. So take him as a middle end type wide receiver 2, but he does have the potential, if this offense is going to be higher than that, I fully agree, especially with an increased opportunity for touchdowns. So anyway, speaking of touchdowns, let's talk about Derrick Henry, because this is a guy, in my opinion, is a slight upgrade for me. People are going to be totally on different spectrums on this. You're going to have guys that are saying, well, what about the volume, blah, 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 big downgrade for Derrick Henry. On the flip side, you're going to be talking about the people that say, well, the efficiency of this offense, the goal line opportunities, like he's going to be higher. This, in terms of value standpoint for me, would be a slight upgrade. Again, this is still a guy that is going to be in the top 6 running backs regardless. He's going to be my RB5 in redraft as of now. The way I look at it is the loss of potential opportunity share he saw in 2020, which was 408 opportunities last year, is combated with that improved efficiency and a shifted focus on the defensive end, which will lead to more high-quality touchdowns and scoring opportunities. Again, his target share is not going to be affected. The people that are saying, oh, well, he might go from 20 to 8 no. When the offense of the Titans wants to target Derrick Henry, It's not through progressions. It's through designed passing plays with this guy in the offense. They're not just going to have Ryan Tannehill sit back in the pocket, go for 3-4 progressions, and then just dump it off to Derrick Henry. That is not how the Titans offense rolls. If they want to get the Derrick Henry the ball in the passing game, it'll be through the screen game. It'll be through slight dump offs. It'll be through that type of nature. So the people that are saying, oh, well, he had 20 targets last year, what's he going to get this year? He's going to get the same fucking target share.
Yeah. The rush attempts, see, again, another thing with Derrick Henry is the reason I've been, I would say a little bit lower on him than I would say consensus is, because consensus-wise, he's like a top 4 running back, because I don't think he's going to rush for 2,000 yards again. And yeah, the efficiency of the offense is going to be good, but we've kind of already alluded to the fact that this team might be a little bit more pass-heavy next year, and Derrick Henry is a monster in terms of rushing volume. So if he gets a normal amount of carries, not 370 or whatever he's used to getting. If he gets like a 300 carry workload, which is still going to be one of the highest in the NFL, then he is going to be slightly less than what he was last year and what he was the year before. So again, I'm still banking on this guy probably being a top 5 running back, but I think his RB1 ceiling is fleeting. If he couldn't do it on a 2,000-yard rushing season last year, it's going to be hard for him to do it this year. And again, the touchdown upside is what keeps him, relevant. This move from really hurting him, obviously, right? Because he should see more goal line opportunity just by nature of the offense being more consistently getting first downs, because they have two freaks of nature on the outside. Maybe his boxes are a little bit, less stacked because of those 2 guys that they have on the outside too. So I think it's going to be a negligible difference. Maybe he gets a little bit more touchdowns, a little bit less volume, maybe a little bit more efficient, 1 or 2 breakaway runs here or there because his box was a little lighter. But I don't think this is a situation where we're looking at Derrick Henry gaining a lot of value or losing a lot of value either way.
Yep, I fully agree. So, and we'll quickly talk upon the tertiary weapons. I kind of talked about it with AJ Brown, but no thanks. Like maybe Anthony Ferguson at like the tail end of my drafts. But even that might be a
stretch. And only in best ball too, not even in like a regular redraft format.
In a 15-team redraft, cool. You're drafting a worse version of what Jonnu Smith was last year. Are you really going to be excited about that? No, you're not. So anyways, we can get on to the Falcons' perspective of this. And you can start it off with Calvin Ridley, the quote-unquote main beneficiary of this.
Yeah, definitely the main beneficiary of this, because Calvin Ridley goes now from a back-end wide receiver 1 where he was, last year consistently, and then obviously more than that when Julio was out of the lineup, but he doesn't change a lot in Dynasty for me. We had him as, I believe, our wide receiver 7 consensus-wise, and we always knew this situation was rocky. We always knew that Julio Jones wasn't going to be in Atlanta for 4 more years. Like, we figured this was his last year in Atlanta coming up, and then it ended up, working out that he's no longer in Atlanta at all. But in redraft, this is a guy that moved up for me a little bit, because I moved him and I basically switched him with AJ Brown, because I had AJ Brown at 4 before and I had Calvin Ridley at 6 or 7, I believe. And I moved Calvin Ridley up above Devontae Adams at 4. So if the Devontae Adams situation clears up and Aaron Rodgers is back in the starting fold, then I'm going to move Devontae Adams up and Calvin Ridley will be my wide receiver 5. But as of right now, in an underdog league, if I'm doing a redraft format right now, I would take Calvin Ridley straight up over Devontae Adams.
Yeah, absolutely fair. Again, we're talking about a guy who was super efficient on his targets last year and now has a situation where he can be that lead alpha top dog. So anyways, talking about my rankings as well, I currently moved him up to the wide receiver overall 5 in my rankings, and him and AJ Brown are actually back-to-back. So I'm fully in agreement. This is an elite wide receiver 1 that should be going at the end of the 2nd round, early 3rd type area in your drafts. Let's get on to the next second best in terms of being a beneficiary from this deal. We're going to talk about Kyle Pitts. And this is the guy that you could take it away with, but has been the eye of the dynasty and overall fantasy football community all offseason, but take it away with him.
Yeah, and I feel like I've kind of been lowest on Kyle Pitts because everybody just wants to anoint him the next like George Kittle or whatever, but he vaults past Hawkinson in my redraft and my dynasty rankings. I actually had Kyle Pitts at tight end 6, I believe, in both formats, because I believed in TJ Hawkinson. I believed in Mark Andrews from what I've seen on the field. And we're still talking about a rookie tight end, right? Like, there's always the chance that he's just like every other rookie tight end and takes, a year or 2 to develop. Obviously, if anybody's going to break that rule, it's going to be Kyle Pitts. He's like the outlier of all outliers at the position. He's a super prospect. There's nobody that's ever been like him, really, honestly, in my entire time watching college football. So I haven't moved him ahead of Mark Andrews in redraft yet. I may do it at some point in the offseason, but right now, Kyle Pitts is great. I think he's going to be a great player, but I can't put him ahead of Mark Andrews for redraft perspectives yet. from what I've seen from Mark Andrews in the NFL. I've already seen Mark Andrews be a top 5 tight end. I've already seen him score, double-digit touchdowns. And I think his passing offense is also going to go up in volume too. So I think they're going to be very close for me all offseason.
Yeah, I do agree. However, I did make that slight adjustment. I do have Kyle Pitts overall as my redraft, and he was already my dynasty tight end for. But man, the talent that this guy has now met with the opportunity in this offense, like, I don't think he's going to be an inline tight end for them. I know, like, it might sound crazy or whatever, but I can see this guy spending 85% of his snaps in the slot next year. In general, like, we're looking at a guy with the athleticism, the fluidity, the overall receiving talent to be able to occupy that number 2 weapon in this offense type of role. And if you're getting that at the tight end position, let me tell you, like, this is a threat to possibly see 100, 110 targets as a rookie. I would not be shocked if we're talking about this guy going into next year as the unanimous tight end 1 in Dynasty. That's how talented I think he is. Now, again, I do agree. Because he's a rookie, it's a little bit of a projection right now. I'm not just ready to anoint it right now and say, oh, I take him over Kittle, I take him over Wall, I take him over Kelsey. But if he has a really good rookie year, like, he's in that conversation. And for some people that aren't as skeptical as me and you, they already have him as their dynasty tight end 1. Like, if you have Kyle Pitts right now on your team, the amount of value you're going to be able to get for him is fringe second round type, third round type capital from a regular Superflex dynasty draft, and a tight end premium, you could potentially get back end first round type value. That is the amount of hype I have seen on him. And it just makes me even happier that I got him at 109 in our Scott's Talk League.
Yeah, also the most insane pick I've ever seen. But a couple guys that we're going to, finish this video out with, but Matt Ryan, obviously he goes down, right? He loses his longtime favorite target. From a redraft perspective, especially, it really knocks him down significantly. I moved him down from quarterback 13 to quarterback 18. I currently have Kirk Cousins ranked 1 spot ahead of him, just to give you an idea of who he's around. And from a dynasty perspective, the fact that they already traded Julio is telling me that Matt Ryan's time is ticking in Atlanta. I seriously think this year, if not this year, next year is definitely going to be his last year in Atlanta. And we could even be looking at a new team for Matty Ice as soon as next year. And I'll literally bet anybody right now that he's a Denver Bronco a year from now. They trade, a third round pick for him, second round pick for him. Maybe they get Matthew Stafford level value if Matt Ryan has a great season this year. But I just don't believe that Matt Ryan's going to be long for Atlanta very much longer, to be honest.
Yeah, I agree with that. And we could quickly talk about Mike Davis. I know we didn't really have him listed here, but talking about Mike Davis, this just kind of reaffirms to me the identity that Arthur Smith is really going to want to bring to this offense. Again, we're talking about a team last year averaged over 39 passing attempts per game. In comparison, the Titans averaged 30.1. Now, do I think that they're just going to decrease in 9 passing attempts per game? No, like, there's going to be a healthy balance. Arthur Smith is going to understand the personnel that he has on this team, but by him signaling away the franchise leader in receiving yards, the best receiver maybe of his generation.
Probably the best player in franchise history too.
Yeah, like that. What that signals to me is that Arthur Smith does believe that he's going to be able to implement some of these strategics that he had in Tennessee. So if Mike Davis is healthy with the current competition he has on the roster, and albeit they could bring someone in free agency, he could have increased competition going into the season, but I just don't really see a way he doesn't have 300, 320 plus opportunities this year. Like, as crazy as it sounds, we're talking about freaking Mike Davis here. We have seen him be productive in the past in the NFL. While he's not the most sexy name, like, I'm fine with buying this guy as a top 20 redraft back, on all honesty.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I'm not even going to mention anything else about Davis because I think this guy's value is only going to keep going up in the eyes of like redraft players. The longer they don't sign somebody, the longer they don't add somebody. If he can make it through these like next couple checkpoints of like training camp, usually teams tend to add people in training camp. Then the preseason, if somebody gets injured, even on like if Quadre Olson got injured on their team, they might add somebody that's even better than Quadre Olson, which would hurt Mike Davis a little bit. But I think all signs are pointing to the Falcons giving Mike Davis at least a 250 touch workload, even if like some of these other guys are more involved than we think. I think we can at least count this guy as that starting back, that feature back, 50 to 60 to 65% snap share type of running back. And if that's the case, the guy's going to be a top 20 running back in an offense that should be still pretty good, even without Julio Jones. And the last guy that we're going to talk about real quick is just Russell Gage, just because now he's the second receiver on that team, probably the third overall target on that team. I think he's firmly a sleeper value guy to take in underdog drafts, to take late in your redraft leagues. like 8th, 9th, 10th, 11th, 12th round. I'm not really sure where his ADP is going to line up. Maybe he's a 12th round pick. And at that point, I think he's like an awesome sleeper at that point. But the Falcons' propensity to throw the ball, even though Arthur Smith is coming in, is still going to be there to some extent. So they're probably not going to throw the ball like 670 times like they did last year. But if they throw the ball 580 times or something like that, which to me seems reasonable, 150 targets for Calvin Ridley, 100, 110, 120 for Kyle Pitts, there's going to be another option in that offense, whether he's, a consistent wide receiver 3, maybe he's boom or bust, or maybe he's just a great best ball pick, right?
Yeah, I was going to talk about it too. Like 8th to 10th is probably where I'm out. But if you're talking about him in like the Ruggs, the Jalen Waddle type area, that's where I would say, okay,
and there's so many receivers, that's probably where he's going to end up being, right? Because like for him to be an 8th to 10th round pick, he'd probably have to be going around guys like Laviska Shenault and like DJ Chark and stuff. And I don't think he's ever going to sneak into that range.
No. So yeah, and we could talk about quickly because there's another tertiary weapon on the offense, but Hayden Hurst, I mentioned, what if they use Kyle Pitts in the slot? What if they have him say, you know what, 80+% of your snaps are going to be out wide in the slot, and they have Hayden Hurst playing in line? Like, I could see him carving out a top.
Like best ball tight end 3 only. Like, don't draft him in a redraft league, obviously. But if he's your tight end 3 in a best ball league and you got him in the last round of your draft like we did, which you guys are going to see on our upcoming mock draft with Hayden, you guys are going to see we got him as our tight end 3 in that draft. And I think it's, it's stock up on him, I would say, because it looks like Pitts is going to potentially, they might even play Pitts at the X, man. Like, we have no idea.
He's got the versatility to be able to do it, so I wouldn't count anything out. So anyways, is there anything you want to add on the overall situation, or can we finish out this video?
Yeah, no, we can get out of here. If you guys enjoyed this video, as always, like, comment, subscribe, join the Discord if you guys want a chance to interact with us, be on Dynasty Decisions, whatever the case is. Peace out and enjoy your Sunday night.